You lost? Ranger station's at the top.
Redfall's open world is fairly formulaic when you strip its gameplay loop down to the basics, but it's the detail and originality layered over the top of that formula that makes it feel fresh. The thrust of Redfall's story is that a small circle of power-hungry people working under the auspices of medicine and wellness tap into a great power that turns them into super vampires, and much of the region into regular vampires. Oh, and they've eclipsed the sun too, and blocked everyone in the region using a water wall that I never really got to the bottom of understanding. Redfall's story is not the star here by any means, and the human characters you hang out with in the bases will do little to indulge your narrative curiosity. The playable heroes only have a few surface level snippets of their own dialogue, and it's a little odd that the only characters to get any notable development in the game are the villains. You'll be exploring two separate open world maps in Redfall, both of which are split into several neighbourhoods. Each of these contains a safe house which provides side missions that eventually culminate in a battle against the neighbourhood's underboss. In true Arcane style, you can approach these encounters in whichever way you like. On both of the game's distinct open world maps, you'll need to defeat a certain number of those underbosses in order to unlock the interdimensional doors, taking you to the big bosses of each region. Oh yeah, that's another thing. As well as the densely designed bases, mansions and homesteads of the mortal realm, you'll also be dipping into the vampire's psychic reality from time to time, a surreal alternative dimension where the vampires reside and get their power from. This is where the game's co-op shooter sensibilities feel a little at odds with Arcane's more open-ended philosophy. Sometimes vampire nests pop up on the map, creating a circle that slowly expands over time, increasing the power of all vampires within it. To destroy these, you need to find the door to the psychic world in these areas, then do a linear, semi-randomised gauntlet run to destroy a giant heart and close the nest. Sure, these areas look the part, but with their enemy modifiers and what seems like a few different level elements randomly spliced together each time, it feels like a shallow attempt to pad out co-op play. Likewise, the big bosses skip over that immersive sim goodness of letting you defeat them how you like, or using weird roundabout methods, and are instead simplistic and stagey showdowns against foes with limited movesets who I found way too easy to cheese and outwit. Redfall is at its best when you amble around its spookily stylized world, and allow yourself to happen upon things. I've witnessed plenty of shootouts between the different AI factions, and I once saw a unit of mercenaries nearly wipe out a band of Hollow Man cultists before a pair of vampires swooped in and spoiled the plan. There are a fair few varieties of vampire in Redfall. Your standard vampires are speedy, strafing left and right and teleporting around you, and also they may be the first FPS enemy I've encountered that actually ducks and weaves beneath your shots, which makes a nice change. You also have your exploding squishy blood bags and the super vamps like the Siphon and Shroud, which limit your visibility with a dark mist, then take shots at you from the outside of it. As for the combat itself, the four characters' skills are much less stealth orientated than in Arcane's previous work. There are no flashy stealth takedowns here, no laying devious traps or hacking hostile turrets. There is an enemy awareness system, but the AI doesn't get particularly flustered when you use the translocator to teleport yourself around them, and will usually turn to face you even after you've beamed yourself to a completely different angle. You can still sneak through some areas and complete missions unnoticed, but there's not quite as much scope for dirty tricks and really messing around with the systems here. There's a bit of tension between Arcane's trademark playful superpower shooter stuff, where you could toy with your enemies like in Dishonored, and a more straightforward Borderlands style shooter. I didn't like the floating numbers coming off of enemies, which you can and should turn off, or the loot system where you regularly find yourself upgrading weapons based on incrementally increasing levels and numbers. The guns, meanwhile, are your standard pistols, assault rifles and shotguns, with a couple of vampire-specific ones thrown in, such as the devastating stake launcher, and a UV beam that petrifies vampires, letting you follow up and shatter them to pieces. I do think that while the skill tree is a bit thinner in single-player context than Arcane fans are used to, it's designed to shine in co-op play. The translocator, for instance, isn't just something you use once, but effectively creates a portal between where you threw it from and to, meaning that while it's there, your allies can also use it. Meanwhile, the electric pulse spear, which zaps enemies in an area around it, can double up as a healing beacon with the right abilities. Once you start synergizing those skills with other players, I imagine Redfall will create some unique tactical teamwork opportunities. There's no question that Redfall dilutes that immersive sim purity from Arcane's earlier games to accommodate the more marketable fantasy of hunting down some vampires with a group of mates. More than any of the studio's previous games, Redfall leans towards being an out-and-out shooter, but to its credit still manages to hold on to those Arcane touches like mechanical playfulness, inventive world building, and the joy of exploring an original and super stylish game world. Redfall is a game where you can wander off by yourself into the woods at night to investigate every room of a creepy New England manor, piecing together the horror that struck there by reading notes and meticulously scouring the environment. It's also a game where you can link up with superpowered friends to launch a full frontal assault on a bunch of cultists worshipping a tree vampire, or fight a giant giga-vampire in another dimension. The fact that it can offer these distinct experiences in a way that ranges from compelling to competent to okay, but awesome with friends, is an achievement in itself. In short, Redfall is a really good kind of weird. And that is the end of this review. Thank you very much for watching as always, and if you enjoyed this video and found it useful, go on down below, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and give the bell icon a ding dong so you get notified whenever we've got new stuff. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.